How China quietly killed the S-400 monopoly. The HQ-9B takeover nobody saw coming. 10 years ago, if a country wanted to stop an F-35 or a cruise missile swarm from turning its airspace into a parking lot, there were exactly two phone numbers worth calling. One in Moscow, one in Washington. The Russians would sell you an S-300 or the brand new S-400. The Americans would offer the Patriot. China? They had something called the HQ-9, and literally nobody in the serious defense world took it seriously. It was called a copy, a reverse-engineered toy, something you buy if you can't afford the real thing. Fast forward to 2025, and that same Chinese system, now called the HQ-9B, isn't just competing, it's replacing S-300s and S-400s in country after country. And the craziest part? Some of the nations throwing out perfectly good Russian hardware still have Russian technicians living on their bases right now. This isn't a normal export success story. This is the moment the entire global air defense market flipped, and almost nobody in the West noticed. Let's start with the map. In 2015, the long-range SAM world looked red. Russia owned Algeria, Venezuela, Syria, Iran, India, China itself, half of Central Asia. The S-300 family was everywhere. Then the S-400 started rolling out, and Moscow thought it had locked the market for another 30 years. Now watch what happens when we speed up to today. Algeria quietly retired two full S-300 PMU-2 battalions and replaced them with HQ-9B. Not one battalion, two. That's 8 launchers, dozens of missiles, gone. Turkmenistan, a country that shares a border with Afghanistan and takes its security obsessively seriously, phased out its old S-300 PS divisions starting in 2022. By 2024, the new radars in the Caspian coast were Chinese. Uzbekistan stood up an entire HQ-9B regiment outside Tashkent last year. Brand new, still has that factory smell. Angola, yes, Angola, in southern Africa, just took delivery of its first battery in 2025, making it the first sub-Saharan operator of a 250-kilometer class system that isn't Russian. 4 countries, all former S-300 users, all walking away from Russia and straight into China's arms. And these aren't broke nations buying the budget option. Algeria operates Su-30s and S-400s at the same time. They could afford literally anything. They still picked the HQ-9B. But it gets wilder. There are credible reports, not rumors, reports, that both Saudi Arabia and Iraq have opened technical talks about migrating away from their Russian systems to Chinese ones. Saudi Arabia already has the Patriot and the THAAD, yet rumors out of Riyadh say the next big buy might be HQ-9B to cover the eastern flank. Iraq, which still has battered S-300s from the Saddam era, is apparently looking at a full replacement package. Think about that for a second. Countries that spent billions on the S-400, countries that signed long-term logistics deals with Moscow, are willing to eat the sunk cost and switch. Why? Because the HQ-9B doesn't win on paper. It wins where it matters, in the real world against real threats at a price nobody else can touch. First, raw performance. The export HQ-9B is advertised with a 250-kilometer engagement envelope against aircraft, 150 kilometers against low RCS targets. That already matches or beats most S-300 variants in service today. The radar is a 360-degree active electronically scanned array from the start. No rotating dish that leaves blind spots like the old S-300s. No expensive 92N6E you have to pair with the S-400. It's native 360. Second, cold launch. The missile pops straight up out of the canister before the rocket motor ignites. That means the launcher itself survives the blast, you can fire in any direction instantly, and reload time drops dramatically. Russian S-300s and S-400s still use hot launch. The truck takes battle damage every time you shoot, and you have to point roughly toward the threat before you ripple. Third, electronic warfare resistance. Multiple open-source incidents now confirm the HQ-9B has jammed and defeated the exact countermeasures that Russia designed for its own systems. In exercises against Su-35s using Russian pods, the HQ-9B burned through the jamming like it wasn't there. That's not marketing. That's live-fire proof that China solved the very problem Russia never quite did. Fourth, integration pain. Most of these countries still run Soviet-era command posts, Soviet radios, Soviet IFF. Retrofitting a Patriot battery into that mess costs hundreds of millions of dollars and takes years. The HQ-9B was deliberately designed to slot into existing Russian-style networks with almost no changes. Plug and play, but deadlier. And fifth, the part nobody talks about, it's not a standalone system anymore. China sells the complete package now. You buy HQ-9B, you get YLC-8B anti-stealth radars, you get HQ-17 short range, you get the GJ-11 stealth drone for targeting, you get the satellite uplink, you get the training center, you get the 20-year software roadmap. Russia offers pieces. America offers a system plus a lecture about human rights. China offers an entire air defense ecosystem you can finance at 2% interest. That's the killer feature, the ecosystem. Every HQ-9B sale pulls another country into Beijing's orbit for upgrades, spares, training, cyber, space-based queuing. 10 years from now, those countries are going to be running Chinese battle management software, Chinese encryption keys, Chinese satellites overhead. Russia never managed that level of lock-in, because half the time their own industry couldn't deliver the spares. The West? Patriots is amazing, but try buying one when your State Department ranking isn't in the top 5. Good luck. So the math for a lot of governments became brutally simple. Do I want a slightly better spec sheet in 10 years after Washington approves the sale, or do I want 250-kilometer coverage over my capital next year, fully integrated, half the price, no political strengths? Guess which one they pick? And the trend is accelerating. Pakistan already operates the HQ-9P variant and is expanding. Morocco signed in 2024, becoming the first North African buyer outside Algeria. Serbia took delivery of the HQ-22, the 170-kilometer little brother, and immediately started asking about the longer-legged version. Egypt is in advanced talks, which in defense terms means the check is already written. Even Russia's closest allies are hedging. Belarus still swears by the S-400, but they quietly co-produce Chinese short-range systems now. Armenia, after the 2020 war exposed every weakness of their old Russian air defense, is reportedly shopping Beijing. The S-400's reputation was built on Syria footage from 2018, Tomahawks exploding midair, Israeli jets turning back. 7 years later, the same S-400s in Syria can't stop Turkish drones or Israeli strikes anymore. The world noticed. China noticed harder than anyone and built something that doesn't have those holes. There's an HQ-9C coming, by the way, almost zero public information, but the few leaks say 300-plus kilometer range, anti-hypersonic capability, new seeker that laughs at current jamming. If the HQ-9B already killed the S-400 export market, the C version might bury it for good. So where does this leave Russia? Moscow's defense industry is on life support. Sanctions bit deeper than anyone admits. The 48 N-6 missiles for the S-400 are rationed even for their own forces in Ukraine. Export customers wait years for spare parts. When Algeria wanted more missiles in 2022, Russia said maybe 2026. China quoted 8 months. That's not a competition anymore. That's a rout. And the West? Patriot is still the gold standard in a NATO war, but the production line can't even keep Ukraine supplied. Export customers are told 2030 delivery dates. Meanwhile, a brand new HQ-9B battery can be on your soil before your next election cycle. This is bigger than one missile. This is China doing to air defense what it already did to 5G infrastructure, solar panels, and electric buses. Take a market everyone assumed was locked up by legacy players, undercut on price, match or beat on performance, and rapid in financing nobody else offers. 15 years ago, we laughed at made-in-China weapons. 10 years from now, the laugh might be on everyone else. The last decade belonged to the S-400. The next decade is already being written in Mandarin. And the country that might deliver the final humiliation to Russia's air defense empire, the one nobody wants to say out loud yet, Turkey. Yes, NATO member Turkey, the same country that got kicked out of the F-35 program for buying S-400s, is now in quiet talks about replacing those very same S-400s with HQ-9B. If that deal goes through, the symbolic damage to Moscow would be catastrophic. The global air defense map isn't turning red to green. It's turning red to, well, red, but a different kind of red. And the scariest part, we're probably only in the opening chapter. Thanks for watching. If this one blew your mind, smash that like button, turn on notifications, and let me know in the comments which country do you think flips to Chinese systems next. I'll see you in the next one. Stay curious.